All right. Just to try to make sure we have enough time to get through all of this, I am going to go ahead and get started. I think we may still have some folks joining us, and that's totally fine. I am recording this session just so everybody knows that, and after we're done, I will post both a link to the recorded session and the presentation so that everybody has that as a reference as well. And my guess is I have to get it uploaded onto YouTube, so it may be this afternoon before that comes out. So don't be looking for it within 5 minutes after the session ends. So, but I will have it out there for you. So thanks so much for joining today. I have been looking forward to this day for a long time because you guys have all had tons of questions and have been asking really great questions. And many of your questions has helped to fuel some of the ideas that went along with the new software developments that you're now going to see. What I can let you know is that there's basically 2 different projects of development work that were taking place as part of our new course coding world that we now live in thanks to COVID-19. One project was around kind of the administrative tools that we need within curriculum management to be able to identify how our courses are going to be delivered kind of on the back end side of things. And those changes were released to production yesterday. So there was a very brief announcement that came out on the registration listserv that just kind of said, hey, there's some changes. And I'm going to go through exactly what those changes were so that you have a good understanding of kind of what new tools have been implemented for us in curriculum management. The second part of that project was all related to how does this impact the students and what do students see in e-services? And we intentionally developed those 2 projects independent from one another so that for sure we could get the administrative changes out this week. And if the e-services changes couldn't go, we were okay with that. Because we know students need to see it, but until we can do our work and enter the data, it kind of doesn't matter if those changes were there and made available to students yet or not. So the term course and curriculum management changes rolled yesterday. That is live in production now. So as soon as we're done with this meeting, you would be able to log into curriculum management and start doing your work. The e-services changes did not roll yesterday. And the last thing that I heard at about 8 o'clock last night was that they were expecting those changes to roll to production today at some time, but I haven't heard that they have now rolled to production. So it was a little bit iffy because I think most of you recognize that software generally rolls to production on Thursdays. And there's a whole chain of events that needs to happen in order for the software to roll. So the fact that they were saying, yep, we think we're going to get this out there on a Friday, I was like, really? That's cool, but surprising to me. So I'm still not certain if those changes will actually roll to production today or if they will end up waiting until next week, Thursday, to move those changes into production. But we shall see. As soon as I hear for certain and know for certain, I will share that information with you as well. Okay. I'm going to actually share my screen here with you, and I have a little presentation, which I'm hoping you will see. Is everyone seeing my little presentation now?
Yeah.
Okay. So because I'm facilitating and talking all at the same time, I'm going to just let folks know that I'm not great at monitoring chat at that same time. So while we're doing the presentation, I would ask that you please mute your microphones just so we don't end up with any weird feedback or whatever. However, if you have specific questions at any time throughout the presentation, please unmute your mic and ask the question verbally so that we can all benefit from your question. I am just fearful that if you're chatting things to me that I'm not gonna see that. And I wanna make sure that we leave here with everybody's questions answered. So please feel free to stop at any time, just like we always do. The whole reason for gathering us is to make sure that you get your questions answered. And so, so just kind of for formatting for this session, I'm going to run through just a slide presentation and some information that I've pulled together before. And then after we've gotten through all of that, at the end of the session, I'm just going to open it up for any questions that you may have. I did share, I think, when I sent out the announcement that Lynn Akey is on the call with us, so you may have seen her. Hi, Lynn. Excuse me. And she is going to be a valuable resource for us too as we get into the weeds and have some weedy questions. Many of your deans have also responded to me that they would be in attendance. So my guess is we have some and or all of them who are maybe listening in as well. And so at any time, if you have other information to share, please feel welcome to just unmute and join in on the conversation. Because we're hoping that this will be just a huge benefit to everyone. So thanks again for taking the time to join in with us today. So my first slide really just is dealing with what is FlexSync. And so my guess is you've already heard a lot about FlexSync classes. And I put a link in the presentation to our Minnesota State Mankato website that's going to share additional information about FlexSync. If you haven't been out there, it's worth your time to take a look at that website because there's a lot of great information that's there. But I did just pull some little bullet points right off of that website. And so basically what we're calling FlexSync is our branding of how we're going to refer within our university community and to our students to our flexible delivery options that we're making available. So FlexSync delivery is going to allow students to participate in the same class with some people hopefully being able to attend in person and some people being able to attend remotely using Zoom, okay? Obviously, with all of this situation that we have, we are moving forward with planning for the fact that we're going to be able to allow at least some of our students to be present in the classroom. Obviously, as we all know, this is still a super fluid situation and things may change for us. So we may start down the path of, yep, we're going to have some students in class and some students not in class attending via Zoom. But if, as we move forward, we have another flare up of COVID and we have another executive order from the governor that we have to suspend our in-person offerings, this would allow us to very quickly and easily transition to all of our students being able to benefit from the instruction remotely wherever they are, okay? So obviously we will continue to adjust as needs change. And so obviously there's several different approaches. We could split classrooms. So if we wanted to have more students be able to attend face-to-face, we could offer the same course, spreading the information to 2 separate classrooms and have twice as many students be able to attend in person, okay? I don't know that we're gonna extensively do that, but this FlexSync technology is going to allow us the opportunity to at least explore that where it may make sense to do that. It will obviously allow us to have alternating groups. So we know right now, based on the social distancing guidelines in place for us, that we are not going to be able to allow all of our students to attend our classes at one time. So obviously there will need to be more direction and involvement by the faculty in trying to figure out, hey, if your room can only seat 16 people and still comply with social distancing requirements, then how will we decide who are the 16 students who get to attend face-to-face? And will that rotate over time? And so obviously still a lot of things that need to be worked out with regard to that, but no, folks are talking about this and more direction is going to come out as we know more throughout the summer, okay? This will also provide an excellent alternative to students being absent. So maybe a student tests positive for COVID-19, but really doesn't have symptoms, isn't feeling ill. This would allow either the instructor or the student to be able to continue to participate in the class, but not risk the safety of the others in the class, okay? And then obviously, we can use this within traditional classroom settings as well. Sometimes it's easier to see presentations like this if it's right on your computer screen rather than if you're in a big classroom and looking all the way across the lecture hall, right? So there may be some opportunities for us to maximize this technology in that way as well, forward facing. I will say too, with the modifications that are being made in our classrooms, obviously this is a very positive thing for MSU Mankato. And I will tell you, because I meet with the registrars of all the Minnesota State schools weekly, what we are doing here is not what most campuses are doing. And I think that's going to really put us in an extremely positive position for us to be able to continue to market the flexible options our students will have as we move forward, both for fall semester and into the future. So I just feel really fortunate to be here and to be able to have the opportunities that we're going to have our classrooms modified to make them really usable and functional for both our faculty and our students. So I just want to make sure you know that we're pretty unique in what we're doing here, and I'm very grateful to be here versus other places. So with all of that being said, that hopefully provides a little bit of the framework of kind of what we're doing. Now we get to the nitty gritty of we have to code these classes in ISRS so that they have meaning for us, for our reporting, for our students, so that everybody understands what the expectation is, okay? So I want to kind of go through what our current course media code options are. And a lot of this is going to be review. HiFlex is a new media code, so we'll talk about that. So you all know if there is no media code assigned, that means the course is offered in person, right? And the definitions that I'm showing here are from a guidance document that was sent out from the Office of the Chancellor from Ron Anderson on June 9th. So I literally copied and pasted from their documentation. So their definition is saying that instruction is primarily in person, and any course that has no other coding in terms of media code is to be considered in person, okay? HiFlex is the new media code that was added about 2 weeks ago. And so this is their definition: instructions delivered in person with remote synchronous and or remote asynchronous options, meaning lecture capture, so that students could then view the recording of the lecture at a later point. That's what we're getting at with remote asynchronous or flexible asynchronous. But 100% of the credit hours are scheduled with meeting dates and times, and they are all entered into ISRS. And HiFlex then is to notify the student that you would have the option to hopefully attend in person, at least some of the class meetings, or to attend remotely. But it's all of the meeting patterns that go along with the course have to be available flexibly. Okay.
So those we have to enter each meeting code?
The media code gets assigned to a class once, right?
Right, but
So-
each meeting code. So
Yep,
the
and-
second one.
Yep, we're going to talk about that
Okay.
in just a minute. So I will get back to your question, I promise. But I'll show you on the screens what we've got coming. For video conferencing, this is telepresence, right? And so these media codes have been in existence for a long time, 04, 08 for remote site. So no difference in the way we're managing those than what we've ever done in the past, okay? But they're still valid options. Then we have blended hybrid, okay? So the definition of blended hybrid is that 25 to 75% of the instruction is online, and there are regularly scheduled in-person meetings, okay? So I think there's been a lot of confusion and discussion around what is hybrid, what is in-person, what is high flex. And so when we're thinking about blended hybrid, that online instruction, what I keep hearing over and over is that your course is intentionally designed and constructed, right, from a pedagogical standpoint, using online methodology in terms of the way to deliver online learning. It does not necessarily mean that just because we're going to make that lecture available on Zoom and the student happens to be at home, that is not the same as a course being intentionally designed to be delivered online. Okay? So I want you to just kind of keep thinking about that as we continue our conversation forward. Okay? So hybrid, again, has not really changed. This is the same hybrid that we've always used, but the differentiation is that there are, for sure, 25 to 75% of the instruction delivered in an intentional online delivery mode. Okay, and that can be either online synchronous or online asynchronous. Then here are our online media codes. And again, no changes to this. It's the same 3 online media codes that we've had in the past. So mostly online, greater than 75% of the instruction is online with up to 2 possible in-person meetings. So if you have more than 2 in-person meetings, the course is likely a hybrid course and not a mostly online. Okay, and I promise I'll share this slide deck with you. Oops, sorry, the phone's ringing. So that you'll have all these definitions as well. Okay, and so then we have our 12 and 13. So completely online asynchronous, completely online synchronous. Again, no changes to these. 100% of the course delivery is online. And asynchronous means obviously the student can do it at any time they choose to. If it's completely online but synchronous, then maybe there's some online chat or other things that are scheduled where the student is required to be in attendance at that time, even though it's over online tools, whatever you're doing, but there is a synchronous meeting that's required. Okay. So hopefully that's just a good refresher for what the media codes are, but obviously media codes are closely tied to instructional units. And instructional units are actually what drives how much the student is charged for tuition and fees. Okay, so This little chart is hopefully going to help connect some of the dots about what is appropriate in terms of your instructional unit coding. So if we have a course that has no media code, there are many different instructional units that could be valid based on your specific situation. Number one is what the majority of our classes will use, because that is our regular on-campus rate of tuition for MSU Mankato, right? But many of you are involved with specialized programs, and you know there are some programs that have tuition differentials. I can talk just briefly. Social work has one. The MBA program has one. MAC has one. Every course every program that's offered at 7700 France has a differential for the metro area tuition differential. The Bell program in integrated engineering has some different tuition amounts. So there are a wide variety of different tuitions amounts that we end up charging. So my advice to you is, if you are unsure about what your instructional unit should be, certainly reach out to one of us, either me or Josh or Shelly, and we will try our best to answer questions for you with regard to that. If we're not able to help, we will involve Twyla Tinney in the student financial services area, because she is ultimately the billing person, and she oftentimes can help us resolve some of our questions. And my other bit of advice is, as we start to investigate questions you have, we look back at prior terms all the time to see, what did we offer last spring and how did we have it coded last spring? So feel free to use that as a tool as well to help guide you in your process. Okay. Hybrid courses and high flex courses will also use the same instructional units that we would use for courses with no media code assigned. And the big thing to remember is that hybrid and high flex will not charge the online differential tuition, okay? So lots of questions and confusion about that, but we want to just make sure that if we're offering courses flexibly and making them available to students as high flex, we want them to be charged at the same rate as they would be if they were taking a face-to-face in-person class, regular, good old pre-COVID days class, okay? So we would need to make sure that we are not putting in an instructional unit that would charge the online tuition differential for either hybrid, which that has always been the case, or now for the new high flex code, okay? And then we have online, 03 or 12 or 13, and the majority of those online courses will use an R as the instructional unit, because that is the hard-coded way behind the scenes that we are charging the differential for online learning. However, if you are in a specialized program that charges differential tuition for something else, like MBA, like social work, then if there's an online tuition differential that needs to be charged, that would get charged in a different way and on top of what the additional tuition differential already is. So we would want you to continue to code with your special differential tuition instructional unit that you've always used. And then Twyla behind the scenes will add on the additional online tuition differential that goes along with online learning. And I know that was a whole lot of information. So ask questions, please.
Donna, does that include Edina, like elementary education in Edina?
Yep. Any courses that are held at 7700 France have a metro tuition differential. So yes, there is a specialized instructional unit type.
Thank you.
Josh, help me. I think it's an X. I think
Yeah, it's an X.
Thank
That makes
you.
sense.
So yes, and so as we get to the end of the presentation, I want to chat about, while Lynn is on the call as well, about courses that you're now saying are transitioning to online, but are offered in programs that are offered at 7,700 France, okay? So we're gonna kind of keep that until the end, but I definitely wanna have some conversation around that. Are there other questions that folks have about instructional units for right now before we move forward?
Are you really concerned about what we put for instructional type?
I am less concerned about instructional type. Obviously concerned, so if you have questions about what you should be using, please feel free to reach out and ask. But instructional unit type is what drives the money, and that is what is the most important. Media code and instructional unit types are the two most important pieces that we'll be coding with any changes that we're making for our classes now. Okay, so let's go through and just talk about an example, a course example, and then this will help me explain to you what the new features that have been added to curriculum management are, okay? So this is an example of a chemistry class, and this actually came out of the test environment. So this class, if you looked at this class on our schedule right now, has been switched to an online offering. But for the purposes of our presentation, I've had to pull screenshots from test because it was before things had rolled to production. And what this represents is gonna, I think, be helpful in facilitating our conversation and questions that you may have. So when we look at this course, you can see there are 3 different meeting sequences set up on the course. 2 of them, sequence 1 and sequence 3, are actually lab sections. And you can see if you look, they're held in Ford Hall in specific classrooms. I think these classrooms are very close to one another, either right across the hall or right next door or something like that. And in this scenario, the lab, actually they take the class and divide it in half, and half of the students go into Ford Hall 212 and the other half go into 216, and they're doing the labs all at the same time, okay? So I just want to clarify what you're seeing here. Meeting sequence 2 is actually the lecture portion of the class, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2, okay? So what has been added is this new meeting type on the schedule tab in curriculum management, okay? And so you will notice that before this change, right beneath the times, there were little radio buttons that said to be announced, not applicable, or arranged, right? And you could choose those. So as part of this change, we actually removed those radio buttons and included those options as part of the meeting type dropdown. So you did not lose the opportunity to define that your class is arranged. You will just have to select it as the meeting type for the course, okay? So the way we do this has changed, but the methodology is still exactly the same. And what we did was we added some options here that will help us designate meeting pattern by meeting pattern what the requirement is for attendance. So in this class, this is meeting sequence 1 of the class we just saw. And meeting sequence 1 was one of the lab sections. So it was the one that was held in Ford Hall 212. And in this case, the lab will be held in person. The only way the student can complete the lab is to come into the lab and be in person, okay? So we had no way before this change was added to indicate to the student that, hey, you must be present in person, okay? So you'll see that here I chose in person. I'm going to go to the next slide. And this is meeting sequence 2 and meeting sequence 3 for the class that we just looked at. Meeting sequence 2, again, remember, was the lecture portion of the class. And so for the lecture portion, we are going to make that available flexibly, and it has synchronous meetings, right? So we are choosing Flex S to say for the actual lecture portion of the class, that is available flexibly to students. And for meeting sequence 3, which was the other lab, again, we are defining that as being available required in person, because again, the only way the student could take this lab is to actually be in the lab and be present. Okay? So we'll be able to define meeting pattern by meeting pattern what the expectation is for the student. There are some other changes then that have been reflected in e-services that help utilize the data that we'll be entering, which defines how the student needs to attend. So one of the things that we're adding is a new search mechanism that allows students to search for only courses that are high flex if they wish to. I will let you know that the search has been changed or expanded if they select delivery method all, or if they select delivery method in person, they will also see courses that are designated with media code 14 indicating high flex. Okay, and just to clarify, because I don't think I really said this earlier, high flex is kind of the generic term that MnState is using across the system. FlexSync is the terminology that we have chosen to use at Minnesota State Mankato for us to identify our high flex courses. So as you're talking to students and as we're communicating with students, we should be using the terminology FlexSync, but know that that's going to equate to high flex, which is the universal kind of term. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies things. In addition to adding their opportunity to search for classes that are high flex, we've also added throughout the screens that they'll use as they go through the searches and the registration process, the ability for them to hover over the course dates and find out additional information, meeting pattern by meeting pattern, about what is required in terms of attendance. So in this case, you can see this financial accounting course has actually 2 different meeting patterns. And the second meeting pattern is what I'm hovering over, and it's showing you and showing the student that this meeting pattern would be flexibly offered in person and online. Okay, so this is a test. This is from the test environment. I didn't set this up, so it looks wonky to me because it says there are no meeting dates and times, but yeah, it's available flexibly. So know that that's wonky because it's coming out of test, but I wanted you to see what the hover text actually will look like to a student. So this is on the search results page. If they're searching for, hey, give me every Accounting 200 course, and here's the list of all of the courses, for each course on that screen, they would be able to just hover over and be able to get that text to pop up. There is also new hover text that has been added on the delivery method. So in this case, you're seeing it says high flex. If the student hovered over the word high flex, then a definition of what a high flex course is would pop up in the same way that you're seeing here on this screen. Okay, and I didn't give you a screenshot of that, but I think you get the idea of what we're talking about here. Then as we move through all the e-services screens, this is the view in e-services if the student clicks on the course details. Again, you can see meeting details are listed. That's not a change, but the new ability for them to hover over that meeting pattern and figure out what would the attendance requirements be is available on this screen as well. As they move forward, once they've registered for classes, they have the opportunity to do a printed PDF version of the schedule. And we were able to change the PDF version in this way, where we will actually show the meeting type and list it so that there is no hover here, right? It's just going to be presented to the student as a way for them to hopefully better understand. So now this example goes back to our chemistry course, right? And the two lab sections that are offered in Ford Hall are both required in person, but our lecture, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2, is available flexibly with synchronous meetings. Okay. So in terms of course coding recommendations, the way we want you to code your courses as we move forward with this, if the course has any required in-person meetings, so the only way the student can actually complete the course is to be there in person, then we are telling you to not assign a media code at all. This will be considered an in-person course, so no media code would be needed. Okay? However, if there are flexible meeting opportunities for any of the meeting patterns that are tied to that course, we would want you to designate that so the student would be aware, so that they know for this meeting pattern, I could be at home on Zoom, that's fine. But for this meeting pattern, I must be present in the classroom. Okay? If we have a FlexSync course or a high flex course and all of the meeting patterns for the course have flexible meeting options, then absolutely they should be coded as high flex, right? We would want the students to be able to search for them as high flex courses. And in our meeting type field, we will suggest that you use FlexS primarily, because FlexSync basically is offering the opportunity for students to take them flexibly with synchronous meetings required, right? Some of our faculty members may choose to record their sessions and post them on their D2L site or some other way that students could access that. But I'm not certain at this point we know which of the courses will allow that kind of thing to happen and which won't. So we would rather be safe than sorry in terms of what we're sharing with students. And that's why we're suggesting that you use FlexS as the meeting type. Then if they choose to record the sessions and make them available after the fact, certainly our faculty would be able to share that information with the students in their class. And we're not worrying about any sort of misrepresentation that our schedule would provide to students, okay? So if we end up having asynchronous as a possibility, that's awesome. But we, at this point, like to reserve that for faculty to be sharing that information with the students in their class. So FlexS is what we would like you to use. And Lynn, I'm not sure if you have any comments that you want to make about that at this point.
No, I think you've captured it exactly as I would hope.
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you. So now we're talking about online, right? If it's intentionally designed to be offered online, we're going to continue to use media codes 3, 12, or 13 as appropriate based on the definitions that I shared earlier. If we are coding things with online synchronous meetings, we need to make sure we're defining those meeting days and times on the schedule screen, and then choose online as the media type. So we're very clear to students that Yep, there's an expectation that you're going to log in on Wednesday at 2. However, it's an online opportunity. So you need to be available at that date and time, but you don't need to be present. Okay? And then if the course has required face-to-face meetings, but also has intentionally designed online components, then we're going to choose hybrid, right? Which is not different than what we've done in the past. However, if any of those meeting days and times that are specifically required are flexible, you can add Flex S to it. So you need to define, is it required that the student be there in person? If so, choose in person. If it's available flexibly and the student may be in person or maybe on Zoom, then you would want to choose Flex S. Okay, but the difference is there are specifically and intentionally designed online components to the class. It is not just that we are offering that class via Zoom. And then my last little instructional unit reminder, we talked about this already, but instructional unit drives the money, right? So that is critical. And so the only courses that we are wanting to charge the online tuition differential for are courses that have a media code of 03 or 12 or 13. Any of the other media codes, we will not charge the online tuition differential. So our students will pay exactly the same amount that they would pay if they were taking the class as a regular pre-COVID-19 face-to-face class. So for most of our online courses, the correct instructional unit that we will use is an R. Okay? I will not say for every course, because just as we've already talked about, if there's a specific programmatic or location differential that's being charged, then we can't use R, because that's not charging the metro differential or the program differential. And in those cases, if we have those things and we need to charge the online tuition differential, Twyla Tinney will be involved in that process and will handle it all behind the scenes. So guess what? I get to stop talking for a minute. Yay! So hopefully that was helpful, but now what I expect will happen is that we'll get really weedy with your questions. So I'm going to stop talking and just open the floor, and I would love it if folks will just come forward and bring forward any questions, and Lynn will jump in or I will jump in whenever we can to try to get answers to those questions. So
I have a question.
okay, great, thanks.
So prior to COVID, our classes were the blended hybrid. And so our classes have 5 in-person meeting dates, and then the rest of the class is done online. So I have a few faculty this fall semester who have said, my classes are going to be online. So to me, that means that their instruction, those meeting dates that were originally in place are going to remain. Everyone is just expected to meet via Zoom on those dates rather than in person pre-COVID. So I would want to code those online synchronous, correct?
No, I think, Donna, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Those with the course that previously been coded as high flex, or I'm sorry,
Hybrid.
as hybrid, it would still be hybrid because you still have a combination of the course being offered online as well as synchronous requirements as well. And I think, so you would still have the hybrid course media code designation. But then for the meeting pattern that designates the 5 synchronous meeting, that's when you would then have that Flex S meeting type added.
So Flex S though means that they can choose to come to campus, correct?
It means it would be offered flexibly and synchronously for those sections. So, you know, the question is if there'll still be a classroom space reserved for those 5 gatherings, whether the instructor is there or not, is probably a part of the conversation. But if there is an expectation that they're synchronously there, then that would be my preference. Donna, do you have thoughts?
Yep, I based on all of my prior conversations, that's also what I would answer. If the instructor is not going to make actual face-to-face meetings an available
No, they're
option,
not. They're
then
not.
I would put a notation in the course notes area that would indicate, you know, that we will not be meeting face-to-face. We will be meeting via Zoom, but I would still think that that is a hybrid course rather than HighFlex or something else, because there's still an online component where it was intentionally designed to be delivered online. So I think that's still a hybrid course. And Gabby's in ed leadership, just so you know that, Lynn.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Or do you have further questions?
No,
Still
it
look
really
like you have a
does.
question.
No, it doesn't make sense, but I think I just need to look everything over because so they would remain hybrid,
Yep.
but the meeting dates
Would
would
be
be
available Flex S.
okay.
Yep.
But if I'm putting Flex S, then the students have the option of attending campus, correct?
And for the vast majority of things that are Flex S, that will be the case, because what we have heard loud and clear as we have visited with our student body is that they want to attend classes in person.
Okay.
That is their preference. And so obviously, because it's our job as best we can to try to meet the needs of our students, we're trying to offer those options wherever it's feasibly possible for us to do that. Now,
So I have a faculty member that has said they're not giving students the option to attend. It's only, they're only going to be attending via Zoom and that's it. You can't
yep,
come to campus. Is that an option?
I would still code it Flex S, but then in your messages, your course messages, you could put a specific message on that course that says something like, all course meetings will be held via Zoom, you know, connection information will be sent to you, or something like that, so that they're aware that that's the way you're going to do those in-person meetings. In
Okay,
person,
and
quote unquote, right?
right.
Um,
And then for arranged, they can just remain arranged.
Yep. If your course is arranged, that means there are no specific dates and times required for the course, right? And so it may be something like a thesis where I'm working with my advisor and I will just coordinate my own meeting with my advisor at whatever schedule that works for both of us, right? And so in that case, really, we don't need to do anything but note it as arranged. So it's probably the way your course is set up already, no change needed. And then obviously, however I arrange to meet with my faculty, whether that's I'm going to come to their office or I'm going to meet via Zoom, that would all be up for me and my faculty member to arrange, whatever works out. So I don't think there's any coding changes that would be necessary in any of your classes that have previously been coded as arranged.
Okay. And then, sorry, lastly.
Yep, no,
so we
this
have
is perfect. Thanks for
that-
being brave and asking.
well, you know, I always have questions. So like we have telepresence. So are they obviously, well, do I get rid of that telepresence media code now?
Yes, because telepresence is specific to a certain type of a classroom, right? There's specific technology pieces that are in play if we're coding the course as telepresence. So if instead your faculty member is going to deliver that course via Zoom, then your course now has become a high flex course, and it's available Flex S, flexible synchronous, right? It would no longer be a telepresence course at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all great questions, and you know, and obviously you're kind of wrapping your brain around.
Yeah.
Sure that again, it's one thing to watch the presentation. I'm sure that as many of us start to go in and actually, you know, more of these kinds of things will pop up, and you're like, okay. So I think that's where, you know, Donna is saying, please, you know, reach out as you run into the first few times and you sort of kind of getting the hang of it. You know, it's only natural that this is different, and it's different because there's so many different possible kind of combinations and trying to think it through. So it's not simple, fully recognize that. So I know it's a big lift for all of us right now to try and absorb, and on top of just the work of having to go in and code these courses with the intent of trying to give our students, you know, the best clarity around what their course taking experience might be this fall, which is really important to many of them. And particularly, I think, you know, as we're getting into the ones that are most complex to code are the ones that have multiple meeting patterns, and there's different offering or delivery associated with the different meeting patterns. And then that's certainly where the complexity comes in from the coding.
Who's the best person to reach out to, and when and how?
In terms of answering questions with regard to the
Yes.
coding?
Yes.
Probably your term management, curriculum management team is me, Josh, and Shelley. But know that we're all new to this too. So sometimes, Lynn will attest to the fact that I have pelted her with question after question about, what about this? What about this? And so, you know, we may have to do a little bit more question asking to get to the answer, but between the three of us would probably be the best way. You can certainly use the registrar's office one-stop site. And so many of you have seen in all of our signature blocks at the end of our emails, we have a link to our specific registrar's office one-stop page. I can maybe just add that to this presentation too as I make it available. Otherwise, most of us are logged into Skype or Teams all day as well. So you can certainly reach out to us using one of those methods as well.
Donna and Lynn, this is Brenda, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the 7700 France Metro differential, given that both of our graduate programs, the MBA and the MAC, will both be online. It seems as if we would not charge the students the 7700 charge, but I just want to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, Brenda, that would be my understanding as well. If the courses, again, are intentionally designed and are going to be delivered online, so we're using D2L and we're not talking about Zoom and doing, you know, remote, then those should be coded as online, and the online differential should be applied to those courses. Because that is an intentionally different type of offering. It does have additional cost, and certainly there's additional tuition for the student as well. So I would agree with that.
And so that would mean that they would not be charged the Metro differential, that would come off their bill.
That is my understanding as well. I am still having some conversations with Brian Martinson about that. And so you may want to check with him as well. But that's what Brian and I have both discussed up to this point in time. I know he was going to have some further conversations with Doug Norman to make sure that there was clear understanding of that kind of through all of the various different levels of calculating and ensuring then that not just billing to the student was done appropriately, but then also for our own internal accounting purposes.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lynn. I'll follow up with Brian on that as well, too.
Please do, but he and I have had more than one conversation, and each time we've come to the code, if it is an intentionally designed and delivered online course, it should be coded as such and charged as such.
So Lynn, in terms of section numbers, we have specific section numbers that we've typically used for courses that are being delivered at 7700 France and the site location that it gets assigned.
Yep.
How are you wanting folks to do that? Because we've had some discussion that online courses should only be delivered or initiated from the Mankato campus. So just
Right.
wondering about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, you know, as far as I would say, keep the rest of the coding that we have used, how we have done it in the past, if that makes any sense. So, sorry, which two you were saying? The location, site location.
Yep.
And the other one was
section number.
Section number, yeah. So I wouldn't go altering the section number because the delivery of the course has changed. The location site, again, I would go ahead and keep that with the location that the course, but I think the big thing here is that the instructional type is the online.
Thank you.
In a previous slide, we said the instructional unit would be, the media would be online, and then the other would be special differential instruction unit type. So now I'm confused.
So to me, there's differences in terms of what that differential tuition amount is or what it's for. If the differential tuition amount is a metro tuition differential, which is really what Brenda's question was kind of getting at, that's in place because we offer classes at 7700 France, obviously, and have leased space there. And because that comes at a higher cost, students have paid an additional tuition amount for the opportunity to be able to take classes at that location. Okay, so now to Brenda's question, if the course is going to be really delivered 100% online, right? It is an online course, then they're not actually coming to 7700 France for anything. So therefore, we would want to code it as we would other online courses. We could have the situation where the course is offered at 7700 France as a high flex course, right? And in that case, if we're making our space available at 7700 France, then obviously it would be appropriate that students in those classes would still be paying the metro tuition differential that goes along with that. There are other differential tuition amounts that are program specific. So social work has one. There's one for education licensure that charge a higher rate of tuition for a variety of reasons. And in those cases, we still would need to charge those differential tuition amounts. Plus, if the course is delivered online, we would additionally charge the online tuition differential if the course was intentionally designed to be delivered as an online offering. And all of this sounds really great, but it's pretty weedy stuff. And so I think if you have specific questions about specific classes, the thing that would maybe be the most helpful is to put in a ticket in our one-stop page and give us as much detail as you can about what you know about that course. Here's the specific course ID, so we know exactly which course you're talking about. Here's what the instructor has told me in terms of how we're going to be delivering that course. and then forward that, because we may end up then floating all the information that you share among a team of people as we're kind of trying to get to the answers of how should things be coded. So it may float back and forth between me and Lynn and Brian Martinson and the dean and whoever else needs to be involved in that to help get to an actual answer. So I think that's maybe going to be the best way for us to handle that moving forward. I also want to stress that it is our goal that all of these coding changes that are happening or that need to happen will happen before students are able to see their bill. And the date that students will first be able to see their bill is July 8th. That's what the scheduled date is right now. So that means between today and July 7th at midnight, right? We need to have all of these coding changes in place. So when the bills recalculate and then become available for students to see on July 8th, that the bill they see is as accurate as we can possibly make it based on the information we know at this time. So that's another reason I wanted to get to you right away so that you had the opportunity to be making these changes before July 8th.
I have another question.
Great, thanks, Gabby.
So I have an instructor who has said that they plan to attend campus. Actually, I have a few. So they were thinking that that option then for them would be FlexSync, but wouldn't it just remain hybrid blended, but then the meeting dates would be the FlexS because then students have the option to attend via Zoom or come to campus?
Yep, so I think the difference in that, the way you would have to answer that is, are all of the meetings for that class scheduled and nothing online? If so, then you would code that course as a high flex course, right? And you would say each meeting pattern is available FlexS, flexible synchronously, right? If what we're talking about is that we're going to meet 4 times in the semester and the remainder of the course content is delivered in an online, intentionally designed format, then you will continue to have a hybrid course. And just your meeting patterns where the face-to-face is, those are available FlexS.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's actually what is going to be the case for us.
Most of yours, I'm guessing. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
room wise, does Gabby have to find those rooms and make sure they're FlexSync? Or how is that? That might be a whole new can of worms.
Yep. So I hope everybody has seen the link to the FlexSync rooms. They published that about a week ago off the COVID-19 web page, I believe, or maybe the FlexSync web page too. It's probably on both of them. So you can go and review which rooms are currently planned to have the FlexSync additional technology features added. Know that IT is moving forward with basically 2 kinds of classroom modifications. One is their full FlexSync classroom. And what they're adding, just so you have an understanding, is additional microphones that are more sensitive to pick up sounds within the room, better cameras in the room so that they have a higher quality video that will happen and be able to be broadcast on the Zoom. And then within the controllers in the room, some very basic one-touch ways for faculty to initiate that Zoom meeting, okay? So that's kind of the full FlexSync portfolio of features that will be added from my understanding. Then you'll see there's also some rooms that they're defining as FlexSync Lite, which are still available as FlexSync rooms, but may have additional directions and communication pieces that are set up in the room that walk a faculty member through how to initiate it as a FlexSync class, right? But it may not have the fancy new monitor that they're going to add in the classroom, and it may not have the updated, camera, but it would still be available as a FlexSync environment. Depending on your faculty member, they may offer the FlexSync where they're at home, right? If for some reason they're not able to come to campus, they may initiate the class just like I'm doing today from my home. And so that, in that case, if that's what's going to happen and you're not going to have students on campus, then we want to make sure you pull off the classroom spaces, because we don't want you reserving classroom space if in fact it's not going to be used. And based on what we know in terms of the FlexSync classrooms, Shelley actually created a view within EMS that allows her, and maybe you on the web app too, I'm not for sure about that, so we should investigate that, to be able to search for specific FlexSync classrooms for the times and days that you're looking for. I know for sure that Shelley will be able to do that search. I'm not for certain that you will actually be able to do that search. But if that's not in place, we need to investigate how to make that possible, to allow you some better tools to try to find rooms if we need them. And our goal in terms of rooms right now, because I think they're converting 127 of our general use classrooms to the FlexSync model. So a vast, vast, vast majority of our general purpose classrooms will all be available FlexSync. So it is our goal that we do not have to switch every single class in our portfolio, right? But if you have specific needs and we need to be switching a class, then certainly you will work with Shelley to try to accomplish that. And Shelley, if you're on the call, how would you like folks to communicate those requests to you? What's the best method for that to happen?
Thanks. I'm usually fine if they email me their request, or lots of times they put it in through course input too, and then I find them there. So either
Okay.
way works.
So again, as much detail as you can give us, especially the course ID, because sometimes you're like, I need a new classroom for Biology 100 and we have 40 sections of it. So it's helpful to know exactly which one you're talking about. And as many specific details as you can give us will help us cut down on the back and forth between us and you to make sure that we get you what you need. So thanks for asking that question, Sarah.
So if the class is blended hybrid, the meeting sequence is Flex S, but I know that that faculty member they're not coming to campus at all, I would just put in the notes, the instructor will not be attending campus or something.
Here's my next question. Will the instructor not be attending in person, but will students still have the opportunity to do so? If that's the case, you may still need a classroom space for students
Right.
to come to campus and gather. If that is not available as an option, then please remove the classroom from your meeting pattern so that that room becomes available for other classes. Because we will have to juggle some things around. I'm quite certain of that. We're just hoping it's not every course.
So then why wouldn't that course just be considered online?
Because
Nobody's meeting on campus.
Yep, great question. Because it's really down to the way the course is designed to be delivered. And what we keep hearing over and over and over is that there are very distinct methodologies. And for anybody who's a teacher on this instructor, faculty member, you probably are going to be way more well-versed at speaking to this than me, but very intentionally designed methods that we would use to deliver an online class. A class that's being delivered via Zoom really does not employ those specific methods for class delivery, for instructional delivery, instructional design. And so because that's the case, we're offering people an option as to what location they're at when they participate in the class, but the class still is basically being delivered as a regular lectured, in-person, similar class, right? You're just able to take it from a remote location. And because we're not using the additional technology tools that are necessary to develop online modules and the additional instructional management pieces that go with that, we are not wanting to charge our students the additional online tuition differential that goes along with those courses. And so, you know, obviously our goal is, and this is something that I really hadn't thought about, but I just want to share and kind of keep in the back of your mind, is that we had to lobby to the legislature to be able to charge the online tuition differential because of the additional cost that goes with developing an online course. We want to continue to be able to do that where it's appropriate. However, if students aren't benefiting from all of those additional technology features, then we don't want to be charging them that additional fee. And that's the best way I can say it. So I'm not saying we never, ever, ever want to charge the fee. That's not the case. If it's intentionally designed to be delivered online, then we'd absolutely need to charge them the online fee. Otherwise, if we're just making new opportunities for students to be able to sit in that class via Zoom from their home, but it's still basically a lecture course, then we do not want to charge them the additional fees. So that's really the difference. And what I'll say in this, I've been blessed to be in many, many conversations with our registrars group as we're trying to get a handle, because people are coming to us saying, how do we code this? How do we code this? And I'm still trying to get my head around all of this. So I know all of this information is new to you. And I anticipate that you will be continuing to come to me and others with questions. And we want that to happen because we really want to, as much as possible, try to get our classes coded correctly the first time so that when students see that bill, it's accurate as best we can make it.
I think, Gabby, one of the other pieces to that and others is there's a difference between how the course is intentionally designed and intended to be delivered, like an online through D2L, in contrast to what Donna was saying, in that it's not intentionally designed and delivered to be online. It's intentionally designed and delivered to be in a synchronous face-to-face type format, whether you're remote or you're sitting in the same room. I think what gets challenging and in your thinking is, you know, it's not necessarily about where the instructor happens to be, right? So it's not about whether the instructor is physically in the classroom or not, because with the FlexSync opportunity, the instructor doesn't have to be in the classroom. They may be remote. And so like in your case with the course, and I agree, we want to be transparent and as open with students as we can about if it is being offered hybrid course and some of the synchronous time periods when they would normally be in person is FlexS. If that instructor will always be delivering that via remote, then I think we should indicate that so that the students know that and then I do think there is that question about, will a class room space be offered? Will students still have the opportunity to gather, whether the instructor happens to gather or be there or not? And that would be a good follow-up for your dean or department chair. So that way then you could put an appropriate note if the instructor is not going to be present, will only be delivering those synchronous experiences via remote. I do think you'll also try to see Donna and I be really intentional about using the language of online in contrast to remote, to differentiate that. And I know that that's really a nuanced thing, and that, you know, in casual media and even in the spring, when we all talked about this change that we went through, we sort of said, okay, we're all going online. And we're really trying to back off of and being really careful about differentiating what's a remote, kind of an emergency remote distance type experience in contrast to an intentionally designed and intended and delivered online program.
So me again. So I have faculty who they have said that for one of their doctorate courses, they will be attending campus so they can utilize the whiteboard, but they don't want students to attend. So if I, sorry, excuse me, if I understood you correctly, that's something that needs to be discussed with the chair or the dean.
Yeah, I would discuss that with the chair or the dean. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think institutionally, the desire is where it's possible, we do want to offer the opportunity for students to actually be physically present if they wish to, and if with social distancing guidelines in mind, if we can allow that to happen. So there may need to be some further discussion that if the instructor is actually going to be on campus and we have students who really want to be there physically with that person, maybe we wish to allow that because that's what our students want.
With all the safety, health, you know, precautions taken, certainly. So yeah, I would have some follow-up conversation there, Gabby.
I have a question also. Either Lynn or Donna can answer this. In reference to Bio 100, I have a classroom of 300 and I have 300 students registered to take it in the classroom. No communication with the instructor if it's going to be offered to take it as a flex opportunity. To those students that are already registered, do we make a new section so that they have that option? And who is to convey it to the students to maybe switch over? Or do I have to find maybe possibly 2 more classrooms to have that class online? I guess there hasn't been a lot of communication as to how we divide a classroom up that is so big.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get that communication? We don't have that communication with the faculty right now.
Yeah, if you've got a course like that, Cindy, that is a good one to send my way or Donna's way so that we can have some follow-up conversation in which, you know, we do not have clarity. The Office of the Provost and Brian has been working with the deans, and they have been trying to kind of solidify the list of courses and sections and et cetera that will not be offered FlexSync, I guess, or doesn't have the ability to be offered FlexSync, will only be offered in face-to-face. And so I'd want to check to see if that course is on that list. The other thing that actually the provost and I were just discussing yesterday, and as Donna referenced earlier, we continue to hear from our SRCs and academic advisors who are working with our incoming students, their strong desire to be able to attend in person with, you know, all the precautions in place. And so, you know, we were just discussing again yesterday, you know, our next kind of area of focus is needing to look at courses probably like Bio 100, where we may have significant student demand to be in the classroom. And in that case, given the social distancing guidelines, do we need to look at starting to split some of those sections into multiple sections so that we can meet the student demand for in-person while maintaining the social distancing. So that there is some of that conversation going on, or I would say, is underway as we continue to have more knowledge about what the social distancing requirements are going to be, which it looks like we will be at the 6 feet kind of situation through at least the fall semester. And as we continue to hear from our students, strong demand for in-person opportunities and experiences. So I know that's an area of work that the provost and associate provost are now taking up with the deans and sort of combing through the schedule. So Cindy, I would say, when you run into those types of things where you're like, wow, we've got a challenge here if all of these students think they're going to come in person. And we know this is a high first year student, lower division course, to flag that to your dean and to flag that to Donna and I so that we can have some more conversation about what we might need to do with that offering.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I will let you know too, that the facilities team has been working really, really hard this summer, trying to draw schematics of every classroom and how many students could we safely seat in each classroom, and we'll be making adjustments to the number of chairs in the classroom based on those schematic drawings. So as things change in terms of the requirements for social distancing, we may be able to alter that, but there's definitely a lot of work already underway to try to figure out how can we best arrange the classroom so that everybody is as safe as they can possibly be if they're attending in person. And a lot of work that our facilities team is already undertaking with regard to that. So
I have another question regarding that too,
Yep.
just following up to that. So is it first come, first serve for those
No.
seats? Is it up to the faculty arrange who's going to be able to sit in those seats?
yes, it will all need to be prearranged. We do not ever want to leave it up to first come, first serve, because think of what that sets up for the student.
Has that been communicated to faculty and just not us, or just,
No, I think that very much, Sarah, is still like, we're just getting to that place in the conversation right now.
Okay, I know there's so many
so, yeah.
pieces, so.
Yeah, no, but you're absolutely right. And that is that's like up on, that's kind of the next step we have to take with our faculty. And I don't know what all of the strategies might be that we'll employ, to do that. And then, like you said, some of it is, how much demand will we have from our students to actually be in person in the classroom? And so I know there's certainly a desire to give faculty, flexibility in managing their classroom and managing their class. But I also think we as an institution will probably need to suggest some strategies as well. There are some institutions out there that, they're doing some really creative things of, gosh, if there's, if you were to poll the class, like the faculty member may poll the class before the first meeting session. And if there is more demand for in-person or a plan to be in person, they may, based on the course, choose to rotate. So it might be if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday course that, a third of the students come each day in person, and then on the alternative days, they're joining synchronously via Zoom. They may also do, we've heard some other institutions, they're, implementing some technology like we have with our movie theaters, and you go in and you reserve your seat type thing before the class session. And so, it doesn't have to be the same people in class each time, but, the class can only hold 30. And so the 30 students who sign up are registered for their seat for that in-person session. So we know some institutions are doing some strategies like that as well. So my guess is we'll have some of those various different strategies we'll be suggesting. And then we're going to end up probably with some situations like Cindy was talking about below, where we've got so much demand for the in-person and the course really is not conducive to a student being there 1 out of 3 times, let's say, and moving back and forth, in which we'll need to provide more sections of that course. to meet the students' demand for the experience that they're seeking. So I think we're going to have a little bit of everything. The good or bad news is that I think what we just heard from Minnesota Department of Health Tuesday night was that, again, they expect the 6-foot social distancing guideline to be with us through the fall semester at least. We had heard earlier in the summer that they thought that might change, that we might be down to a 4-foot, 3-foot social distancing, which has a fairly large impact on what the capacity of some of our classroom spaces then would be. They did come back and they said, no, they're really confident we're going to be at the 6-foot social distancing through at least the fall semester. So that helps us to get a little bit more real about where some of our course capacity are going to be in person. That will help us, now start to have some more concrete conversations. And then also, that's going to kind of intersect with the coding work that you all are doing now of really getting clarity around where do we have those FlexSync, and then where do we have those absolutely in-persons. So then we can start looking at new space capacity with, as Cindy was just saying, how many students are registered for that class, and how do we start mitigating where we might have, collisions in expectations and safety and health guidelines.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you're right on in what you're seeing coming and the next steps that we're going to have to take as an institution and start to sort out.
Well, we're already over time by 30 minutes, so sorry for keeping folks longer. If there are no other questions for today, then I think we'll end for today. But please know we're going to continue to have lots of conversations. And so as you run into those weedy places where you just need some additional guidance, please be reaching out, and we will certainly try to get answers back to you as quickly as we can. We want our classes to be consistently coded. That's really our goal here, is to make sure that we're following the same methodology across all departments. And so hopefully, our time together today will be helpful to you as you kind of move forward with what needs to happen in your department. So I really appreciate you joining in. Watch for an email from me with the slide presentation and the recording, so that you can rewatch anything that you'd like to hear again. But it's really great to see everybody, and I really appreciate you joining. So thank you so much, and hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend.